Nation. Welcome to the first edition of UCF Knightline Podcast Overtime. I'm Andrew Fegley.
I'm Trace Trolko.
All right, we're glad you found us on YouTube. We're going to do use this video platform to bring you some short interviews and snippets from the world of UCF sports. Today was National Signing Day, and we wanted to do kind of a short video update on what happened today for UCF. It was one of the biggest signing days in UCF history. Maybe even the biggest, Trace.
The biggest, but what's most important, of course, is that it has finally arrived. UCF fans have been talking about this day since the season has ended, if not before. And it does look like a good class. UCF landing most of the targets that they had focused on, including four-star wide receiver Tristan Payton, quarterback Bo Schneider, and a host of others.
Absolutely. Yeah, we had 17 players signed. We left one for Mike Rogers from last year, so he may still sign. But he had some academic problems to take care of, so we'll get him signed, hopefully. We had players from 7 states this year, highlighted by, of course, where Trace just said, Tristan Payton from First Coast in Jacksonville, Florida, and 3-star Cameron Stewart from Shiloh in Snellville, Georgia. UCF now has 9 wide receivers on scholarship, including today's signees.
A couple of big names, and that was certainly a position of need, losing 4 wide receivers, as we've been talking about on the Knightline podcast over the last couple of weeks. Brashad Perryman, Josh Reese, and we've been decimated at that position. So these wide receiver additions add to the class of wide receivers returning for UCF. Of course, UCF also making news recently by announcing that quarterback Pete DeNovo is going to be moved to wide receiver. But that was certainly an issue going into the recruiting class, that this was an area of need.
I think he is probably included in that 9 wide receivers. So basically the breakdown here, we got 1 running back, 3 wide receivers, 4 linebackers, 2 defensive ends, 2 corners, a safety, 2 offensive linemen, 1 quarterback, and a tight end / fullback. That's an interesting spot right there. I want to talk about that first, actually. Aaron Cochran from Atlanta. He is a big guy, number 1, 6'3", 250, listed as a tight end, but also they have him at one point, I think he played fullback in high school.
And with a George O'Leary offense, he is going to need to be a blocker, and is going to be used a lot in that role.
And we have never had a fullback of that size before, and he's a massive kid. He has a big, thick neck. I mean, when you see him,
big, thick neck.
Well, no, but he's just.
I don't remember reading that description in any of the.
He's a mountain of a guy, though. And it's. I think he's going to look really good back there at that fullback position. I think it's one thing that we needed.
And you mentioned from Georgia. Georgia was the state that produced the most recruits today. 5 of UCF recruits.
Yeah, we do really well in Georgia. We also got some guys from Florida. We only had 1 guy that really didn't come that we thought was going to. Cahill Lewis, and he was going to flip, we thought, from West Virginia to come to UCF. And he wound up flipping from West Virginia, but he wound up going to Cincinnati.
I'd rather at that point that he had gone to West Virginia, quite honestly.
Right, yeah.
And to only lose 1 and to have landed a couple that we weren't expecting, keeping our targets amidst the coaching changes, as we've been talking about, new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, was a potential there to lose some guys. And it doesn't look like they lost any of the prominent names they were targeting.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I think we did pretty good. We picked up 2 offensive linemen, which both of them were very high-ranked. 3 stars. One of them was a 4-star for a little while and then dropped down for some reason to a 3-star. It's Hires and Hudanik. And I think both of those guys are going to be great players. Hudanik especially, if you look at him on the tape on Rivals and 24/7 and those services, he runs people over. He just destroys people. So it's really exciting to have him. We also got Bo Schneider as a quarterback. Bo Schneider's a big kid as well, 6'3", and I think 220 something. Everybody compares him to Blake Bortles, and so that could be a little bit weird. He's that size of a guy. He has a heck of an arm, so we'll see. He hasn't played a lot under center in a lot of the high school teams are playing, a spread offense. So a lot of these quarterbacks have not played even one snap under center. So it could be interesting.
And it's nice to talk about a guy that with Brandon Holman coming back that we will not immediately need. He's not someone that we are going to expect to see playing time this coming season.
Yeah, we're actually pretty stacked at the quarterback position, which makes me, really happy. So I think we have 4 quarterbacks now on the roster. So, all right. So,
and Schneider is one of those guys that has been very passionate about UCF for a very long time.
He has,
speaking on Twitter and other interviews, and it's nice to see in the social media feed today. We had a little bit of fun on a previous episode of the Knightline podcast talking with Jeff Sharon and talking about how perhaps recruiting day, National Signing Day, is a little bit overrated with the guys and the press conferences or the moments when they're in the gymnasium and they're choosing hats, except in a lot of those gymnasiums, they were putting on the UCF hat today. So.
Yeah, like I said, I think that this is one of the best, if not the best, wide receiver or National Signing Day that we've ever had. So.
Of course, in 120 plus 1A schools today, that upper level, they're all saying that this is the best recruiting class they've ever had. Nobody, no coach in America is saying, this recruiting class wasn't as good as last year's.
Yeah.
And of course, another funny thing about recruiting day, it's the day when the fax machine is the most prominent technological device in America because it's the day it's most used.
Yeah, the one day. So, yeah, let's talk about the rankings a little bit. On Rivals, we looked it up here. They rank UCF as number 63 out of, I believe, it was 129 schools. So 63 out of 129. That's not horribly bad. There were a couple of American teams that were rated a little bit higher than us. We don't like to really hear that. One of them being...
We really don't like to hear who was ranked ahead of UCF, our neighbors over in Tampa.
Yeah, so South Florida being ranked number 58, and then Cincinnati one above them, 57. Now, one of the cool things about being ranked number 63 is it's not that bad because 64 Boise State, 66 BYU, 68 Purdue, Iowa State, Colorado, Kansas is in there. There's quite a few that are of Power 5 teams, Oregon State, Pittsburgh, that are below us. So
there's going to be some update in these rankings. At different points during the day, UCF was the highest rank of the group of 5. So a little bit of fluctuation in this still expected, and at one point during the day, we were ahead of 16 of the Power 5 schools.
Yeah, and an average number, I believe, average star rating.
And again, I think longtime UCF fans know that with a dozen years of George O'Leary and his way of play, that he's going to coach up, and his coaching staff is going to coach up a lot of these guys. Having J.J. Wharton on the Knightline podcast a couple of weeks ago, was he a walk-on? You talk about guys that are coming in with 1, 2 stars, and when you look at big names in college football, the NFL, we just had a Super Bowl play where there were no 5-star guys in that game. A Marcus Mariota, quarterback, perhaps the number 1 draft pick out of Oregon, only had a couple of offers. So it's an inexact science. It does look, though, that UCF got a good recruiting class that addresses some of the needs that they have.
Yeah, and I think we'll see some of these kids on the field. I definitely believe that we're going to see Tristan Payton and probably Cameron Stewart both on the field this year. Tristan Payton being a 4-star, coming in and playing as a freshman, he will probably play his 2 years, maybe 3 years, and be gone to the NFL. I think
that's prediction.
I think so. I think so. We'll have to see. I mean, he may, turn out to not be any good, but I doubt that's going to happen.
Well, I think what you can count on with any recruiting class is that there are going to be some guys that are highly touted that don't quite turn out. There are a lot of guys that will be under the radar that become the future J.J. Whartons and, Blake Bortles that maybe we didn't expect what we ended up getting out of them. And then some guys will change position. I mean, you remember a guy named Jeff Godfrey moved from a quarterback position to a wide receiver, and that will happen as well in this signing class.
Right, absolutely. Okay, I think we had some questions from a couple of listeners that we wanted to go over. In your analysis of the recruits, what position do you feel was the most helped by this class, and what positions still concern you looking at the roster? This was from John, I believe.
Ken,
I'm
Ken
sorry.
This one.
Ken, this one, John was the other one, I
Yeah.
believe. All right. Well, I'm going to say, of course, wide receiver with our 3 wide receivers that we got. I think that the wide receiver position was an area that we really needed help, and an area that we really, with a 4-star and 2 3-stars, we need kids to come in and play, and I think that helped our class the most. The position that still concerns me, to be honest with you, would be the offensive line. And we got a couple people there as well, but everyone knows the trouble that we had last year on the offensive line. So that's going to be my answer to that question. Trace, what do you think?
Well, I think wide receiver is one of the positions where a freshman can make an immediate impact. I think of our wide receiver core, the wide receiver with the most experience has a total of 12 receptions with a UCF uniform on. So certainly, and you getting to go first for the answer to that question, you get to pull wide receivers. But I think the linebacker core, that's another area. I mean, we're talking about replacing everybody back there. But I don't know that you'll see too many of these guys with the way George O'Leary uses the scout team and redshirting of players. I think there's some guys that we don't know just how good they can be back there. So I'm not sure that you're going to see a lot of the guys that were inked today making an impact immediately for UCF. But I think linebacker was certainly an area that benefited the most by this class.
This honestly being our best class, though, is going to set us up for years to come. That's the best thing about it, is because, these kids have 4 years to play, and with not all of them playing this year, them coming and having the chance to play in the years to come with the guys that we signed last year coming out this year and playing, so it's going to set us up, and we're going to be in good shape, I believe. 17 recruits with one possibly still out there. That's still a couple of scholarship reductions based on some other sanctions and things that have gone on in previous seasons. So UCF's not even at a full capability, and you look at some of the big names today, Power 5 conference schools signing 27, 28, 30 guys, right.
And UCF's got a class at 17. South Florida had 20 plus was their total number of recruits today, but of course they have a lot of need. And when you look at a direct comparison between UCF and South Florida, which I don't really like to do, we've got a lot of 3, 4-star.
I think we'll still beat them,
caliber
even
guys.
if they are, above us.
You're all about predictions. You're predicting the roster out into the future, or we're predicting in-season games coming up into the next season. But you look at those star rankings, and South Florida's got more of those 2, 3-star guys, and UCF's got a couple of star higher quality guys. But I still think that the development of talent, I trust George O'Leary and his staff to develop talent more than I trust Willie Taggart and South Florida to develop talent. So certainly head-to-head, this may show they're a couple of rankings higher, and that may shuffle a little bit. But at the end of the day, I trust UCF's assessment of talent more than I trust the Bulls.
Absolutely. Let's go on to this second question here. This question was from John. He says he finds it interesting that South Florida seemed to stay mostly in-state to get their recruits. Yet, on the other hand, the Knights got almost all their recruits from other states. Is that a testament to our ability to recruit elsewhere, or an indictment of inability to recruit locally, or both? I believe, personally, that us going out of state to get people, it's perfectly fine. I believe that there's lots of good recruits, especially in the state of Texas, and we pulled 2 or 3 kids from the state of Texas. There's a lot of kids in Georgia. Those are our quote-unquote pipeline states, and I think that that's fine that we went out of state and we went elsewhere to get our players. Not everybody will believe that, and not everybody will think that, but that's my opinion personally.
Well, you look at where we got players from. As we mentioned earlier, Georgia with 5, 4 out of Florida, 3 Texas, 2 Louisiana, 1 Maryland, 1 New Jersey, 1 Pennsylvania. John's question, I do think it's a testament to UCF and the brand and the strength of recruiting that they targeted players in other states. I agree. I think that is a good thing. I'd like to see us keep more of that talent at home, though. We have benefited when we have gone out of state for guys, and we're going to get some good guys from elsewhere. And it's not so much that comparison to South Florida, and I don't expect us certainly to be in the league of Florida or Miami for guys. But to have 4 out of the state of Florida, your backyard, And how many of those guys are local high school products? I'd like to see more of those guys with the most knowledge of UCF still choosing us in comparison to going anywhere else out of state. And I'm not talking, again, an Alabama or an Auburn. I don't think we're recruiting in that league. But I'd hate to lose a local kid or an in-state kid to a North Carolina state. So I don't know that I consider it, with a question, an indictment of our recruiting. I still think we have more work to do in keeping the kids in-state.
I do too, but I'm good. I like to get kids from other places. It brings fans from other states and everything else. So I'm good with that. So we need you to go to UCFKnightlinePodcast.com and check out the links there. Look at the links on the side of the page. We have a couple little advertisers there, and that keeps us able to do things like this. And we're going to try a lot to have more video things on YouTube coming up. So,
and it's nice to do a little bit of a midweek version of this. The
and
podcast has been growing, as we've mentioned on the weekly cast, getting more listeners in other states, which, by the way, if you're getting recruits from other states, maybe we've got some family and friends in Texas and Maryland, Louisiana that'll tune into the podcast.
Absolutely, we will.
This past weekend, I think it helped to have former UCF quarterback Kyle Israel on. Part 2 of that interview coming up this weekend. And all of those previous editions of the podcast are up there. So if you didn't get to listen to the J.J. Wharton episode, tune into that.
And the podcast is not going away. This is just a supplemental, deal that we're going to do on YouTube every once in a while. Just some short little snippets. They're not going to be an hour long. They're, there may be, some that are even a couple minutes long.
They may prefer to listen to us than look at our mugs.
Yeah, but now people have some faces to go with the voices if they haven't seen that, and I'm good looking, so it's beautiful. It's perfect.
And now they know who to stop at a game and direct criticism to.
Yeah.
For a column that's been written or an opinion.
Did I say I'm Trey Strike?
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, thank you very much for joining us on the UCF Knightline Podcast Overtime. I'm Andrew Fegley.
I'm Trey Strolko.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Charge on.
Charge on.